Today, I'm ranking every character in Mortal Kombat 1 from easiest to hardest. I think I'm one of the only people who spent hours learning every single character in this game, and as a result, I just had to make this list. I feel compelled. So without any further ado, let's get started, but make sure to keep watching until the end because I'm gonna reveal even more about my comic book, and it's gonna be awesome. Alright, here we go. Every character ranked from hardest to easiest, and I'm gonna start with the hardest to make myself more unique. Everyone else goes easy and works their way up. Nah, we're starting off with the hardest because everyone agrees it's Kenshi. And there's a lot of reasons why. For starters, he has two complete move lists, which is not unique in this game. There's several characters that do have two entirely separate movesets. However, Kenshi's the only character that has to control two players at the same time, which not only makes combos more tricky, but you also must keep track of both Kenshi and his spirit and make sure they're always in good alignment, so it's just more things to juggle than the average character. And as a result, I don't think many would argue that Kenshi is the hardest character to play in the game. But then right behind him, we have Garrus. He only has one move list, but it's massive, and on top of that, there's a bunch of stuff to juggle. You're constantly having to stack the hourglasses, and then you have his time freeze combos, where you have to figure out what does the most damage, and then if you spend a bar on that, you actually do have to control two characters just like Kenshi, but it's for a very brief period of time. And that's why I think Garrus is number 2, because unlike Kenshi, you can play Garrus like a normal character if you want to, but it's kind of like having one arm tied behind your back, whereas Kenshi, you have to master both styles. And then at number 3, we have Shang Tsung. Once again, two complete movesets just like Kenshi, however, the inputs don't change, which makes things slightly easier. And then on top of that, if you want to, you can just run away and throw fireballs the whole time, combined with a good cameo assist. And that's why Shang Tsung is in 3rd place. Yes, he's technically really complicated, but he can be easy if you play him correctly and combine him with the right partner. Now, all that being said, there is one stipulation. If you're a true Shang Tsung master, then theoretically you should know how to play every character in the game because you can swap into them. So in that one regard, you could argue that Shang Tsung is the hardest character in the game because in order to master him fully, you must learn every character. But for this tier list, I'm gonna put him in 3rd place. But now for number 4, we have Rain. Once again, a massive move list, and as the player, you must learn when to properly incorporate each of these moves because every single one has a specific purpose. However, that being said, Rain has the benefit of being a knowledge check. If your opponent does not play this character too, they're gonna get caught off guard by so many things. Overheads, lows, overheads that cancel into throws, really tough to block setups, portals that can be canceled into and out of, projectiles that can be canceled into and out of. So in that regard, Rain has a big advantage. If the opponent does not practice against him, they're in a lot of trouble. Then right behind him, we have Sindel. Not a very huge move list. However, in order to play this character effectively, you must master her levitate combos, which have really tricky timing. And on top of that, you have to create scenarios where you can capture the opponent's cameo or have your own cameo recharge faster, situations like that, none of which is straightforward. And then on top of that, Sindel has below average damage if you don't know her optimal combos, and her mix-ups are lacking too, or very risky. So yeah, Sindel can be very tough to master. But now it's time for the first controversial pick in this tier list. It wouldn't be a tier list video without controversy, and it's your boy Havoc. Because some players would argue that Havoc is easy, right? He's constantly throwing out projectiles, he's got infinite armor, and some really weird shenanigans that make it easy to win with him. However, here's my reasoning for placing him in the hardest category. There's a lot of characters in Mortal Kombat 1 that you can pick up, play, and just understand right away. It's very intuitive. Havoc is the opposite of that. Nothing about this character makes sense when you first play him. His projectiles are his main launcher? What? His arm swing doesn't even combo without the correct cameos? Are you kidding me? And what's the deal with that weird vomit attack? Why does it cost 2 bars? What is this weird neon trail between me and the opponent? What does any of this stuff with Havoc even do? That's why I consider him difficult. And then on top of that, Havoc does rely on his cameo partner very heavily. The guy doesn't have any crazy mix-ups on his own, and his combo damage is way below average without a cameo partner. So yeah, that's my reasoning for why Havoc is actually quite difficult overall. But next up, we have the difficult category. Every character in this tier either has a huge move list or their gameplay has a severe risk to it. First up is General Shao. This man has 2 movesets just like Shang Tsung and just like Kenshi. A lot of attacks to memorize and learn. However, on top of that, he's also terrible at dealing with keep away by himself, so he needs the correct cameo partner. And for the final nail in the coffin, his wake up is terrible. The opponent can duck under it. So yeah, he's lacking in a lot of ways, but his damage is crazy good and he has some really good mix-ups too. And then right behind him, we have Natara. Natara, another controversial pick, but here is my reasoning. Natara has literally no mix-ups unless you pair her with the right cameo. I see a lot of Sub-Zero players complain that his overhead is reactable and therefore shouldn't exist. Well, guess what? Natara's overhead is just as reactable, and without the right cameo, her low doesn't combo anyway, and the opponent can react to the cameo. So essentially, Natara doesn't have any mix-ups, it's all whiff punishing. And even when she does land the overhead, she has to spend a meter to get a full combo off of it. So Natara is constantly spending meter just to get damage. But here comes the craziest part. In order to compete with the other characters, Natara has to harm herself to get a buff. And not only is that buff very brief, it wears off super quickly, but Natara also has the lowest health in the game. She dies easier than anybody else. I've only seen one pro player utilize Natara properly. His name is Deoxys, and if you watch the gameplay, he's constantly having to air dash cancel in and out of everything so much just to get a tiny mix-up going, which is just more proof that Natara is difficult to play, especially at the highest level. If you want to win at a tournament, you're playing so much harder than half the opponents you're fighting. And all those factors combined is why I think Natara is difficult to play. Then right behind her we have Reiko. This character lives and dies by his command grab, because without it, he's a below average whiff punish character. And to make matters worse, NetherRealm did not give him any tick throws, which means he can only go for the raw grab, and if he misses, he gets punished for a full combo. In other words, Reiko is a high risk, high reward kind of character, and without the correct cameo, his throw's not even that scary. And that's why I personally consider Reiko difficult to play. Oh boy, but then behind him, we have Johnny Cage. And hear me out, okay? I'm referring to the full potential of Johnny Cage, playing him properly. Having to constantly stop your offense and go for those taunts, and then activating star power mid-combo, and then pulling off those ridiculous frame-perfect combos to get maximum damage is no easy task. However, at the same time, I understand that it's possible to play Johnny Cage well without doing any of those things, and that's why he's right here in this tier list towards the back. And then behind him, we have Ashura. Once again, hear me out. Yes, this character has a lot of stuff to memorize and master. However, unlike anybody else in this tier, she is remarkably safe, very low risk. Ashura is super easy to not mess up with. And then on top of that, she can do everything. Good projectiles, great teleport, combos off her throw, she has a disjointed hitbox with the sword, she's pretty much cheating because she has a weapon out the entire time. So on the one hand, yes, you are having to master a lot of moves and learn all the different things that change when she's in dark or light mode. However, she's also extremely safe, low risk, and a good reward. But alright, now it's time for the intermediate list, otherwise known as the normal or regular characters. They're not difficult, but they're not easy either, they're somewhere in the middle. So first up, we have Smoke. At the very casual level, this guy's brain dead, right? Overheads and lows everywhere, even his teleport hits low, and it's hard to see what he's doing each time he teleports. However, the game's been out long enough, and everyone's had time to memorize what the lows and the overheads look like, which means a good Smoke player has to adapt and actually learn how to master the vapor cancels, which are much easier said than done. The timing can be really tricky, especially in a bad connection. And even then, the opponent can actually interrupt his vapor cancel, so a Smoke player has to be smart and not abuse that technique either. And then finally, it's worth mentioning they have to learn how to fight while invisible, because turning invisible is one of the best things about Smoke, so the player has to learn how to fight without seeing their character at all. Then right behind him we have Li Mei, and my main reason for that is because Li Mei requires knowledge of frame data. You can't just play this character like anybody else, because the main advantage of Li Mei is her plus frames, but you wouldn't even know about plus frames unless you're a decent player already and also spend time in practice mode learning when she's plus and when she's not plus. That's the main reason I consider Li Mei tougher than the average character. You have to actually understand frame data in the first place and then also learn how to apply it effectively during a match. But then on top of that, Li Mei doesn't even have mix-ups unless you master how to do an instant air special move. Her overhead can be done immediately out of the air, but it's tough to do that consistently. You gotta have good fingers. Or in other words, Li Mei requires skilled execution, because one of the main strengths of Li Mei is her combo damage is really high, but only if you master how to do her combo execution correctly. And then behind Li Mei we have Reptile. This guy has a lot of tools, but none of them are exceptional. As a Reptile player, you have to constantly adjust between your different force balls to keep the combo going, and also learn how to fight the opponent while invisible. And if all that wasn't tricky enough, Reptile doesn't even have mix-ups that combo unless you charge his overhead, which only hits if you're invisible, and comboing after it's kinda tricky too with the timing. Reptile was actually one of the first characters I learned, and I didn't think he was that tricky, but as the games evolved, I've learned how lacking he actually is, unless you take advantage of all his more technical abilities, which does make him more difficult to play. Then behind him, we have Tanya. This character is not not really that difficult to play, honestly. She has fantastic hit confirms, and a lot of what she does is completely safe unless the opponent goes for flawless blocks. Now that being said, she doesn't have any mix-ups at all, so she's pretty much a whiff punish character, but thankfully she can buff herself and get a pretty darn good teleport, and her range is way above average. I know a lot of people claim that Tanya is actually hard to play, but I disagree. I think she's hard to win with, but I don't think she's hard to play whatsoever. She's actually quite straightforward. And then behind Tanya, we have Kitana, and keep in mind this tier list was so difficult because I kept going back and forth between difficult to play or difficult to win with, because when it comes to winning, Kitana has a really tough time since she has no mix-ups, she's kinda slow, and relies only on whiff punishes. However, at the same time, none of Kitana's combos, setups, or whiff punishes are difficult to really do. She's actually quite straightforward. And that's why it was so hard to decide where to place Kitana on this list. At one point, she was all the way up here in front of Shao Kahn because again, she's so hard to win with. However, I had to keep reminding myself that this tier list is about hardest or easiest to play, not to win with, and that's why Kitana is right here. And then behind her, we have Kung Lao, who I think is slightly easier to play because his wake up is brain dead. It's safe on block and launches for a full combo, the best wake up in the game hands down, which means the Kung Lao player rarely has to worry about defense at all. And on top of that, his combos aren't difficult either. He's got a dive kick, which is great for closing space. He's got a lot of tools, pretty low risk and a decent reward overall, unless you play him really stupid and just like YOLO dive kick or something. But now finally, it's time for the easy tier, and it's the opposite of every tier before. If I put a character on the left, they are the easiest character in the game, whereas if they're on the right, they're the least easiest character in that tier. Okay, first up we have Baraka, and everyone knows why. There's so many reasons. He's got really good mix-ups and pressure. He can break armor for free every time with his weird double hitting low, and on top of that, he's got 50/50s, both of which are safe on block if you know what you're doing. He does really good block damage, and his bleed damage is also really good. So even though his combo damage overall was nerfed to be a lot less, he still does crazy damage and eats your life bar really quick, is really safe, can break armor, all that amazing stuff. I don't think anybody would argue that Baraka is the easiest character. For Pete's sake, one of his strings is just mashing circle over and over again. But then right behind Baraka, we have Liu Kang, and there's several reasons why. This character can run away and just throw projectiles the entire match if he wants to. But on top of that, Liu Kang is shockingly good up close. He's got a lot of plus frames, he's safe on a lot of stuff, he doesn't have mix-ups, but that ironically makes him easier because as the player, you're only hit confirming now. You're not even worried about mixing up the opponent. Maybe you throw every now and then, but outside of that, you're whiff punishing or running away and zoning, right? One of those two things. So he's pretty straightforward and does crazy damage. However, speaking of damage, we have Melina, the first character that I really dug deep and learned in this game, and even I have to admit that she's remarkably straightforward, which is kind of ironic because she has so many tools, right? But the reality is Melina is whiff punishing and going for crazy damage, or she's bullying you with the overhead, and that's pretty much it. She can't play keep away because her projectiles don't even go full screen. She has a teleport, but it's super risky, so it's better off only being used for combos. So once again, Melina's game plan is pretty straightforward. Land a whiff punish and do crazy damage, and I mean really crazy. I think Melina is the most damaging character in the game at this point, at least consistently. But then right behind Melina, we have Sub-Zero. This character is lacking in so many ways. He was nerfed really bad after the beta, and as a result, he can be tricky to win with if you don't understand his strengths. However, once again, this tier list is about who's easier to play, not who's easier to get wins with. And I've spent the past week playing Sub-Zero exclusively and can confirm he's actually quite straightforward. If the opponent's around here, go for a whiff punish, land a combo, hide behind your clone, and then zone them, and then once your opponent gets frustrated, they inevitably jump, you ice clone, punish them for a full combo, reset the distance, hide behind the ice clone, whittle them down with zoning, rinse and repeat. But then behind Sub-Zero, we have Raiden. Keep in mind, this character was nerfed pretty hard and is no longer the damage king. Instead, his damage is more average actually. He struggles to get like 42%, even if you use 2 cameos and spend a bar. And the reason I bring that up is because Raiden never had 50/50s or mix-ups whatsoever. None of his overheads lead to a combo, so you can block low all day and then just eat the overhead or eat the throws. Raiden's not bad by any means. He has every tool in the game you could want, right? His projectile can do crazy chip damage, his little lightning charge also does crazy chip damage, he can teleport, he can fly across the screen. Raiden has a lot of tools to be sure, but unlike everyone else in this tier, he doesn't have crazy high damage or ridiculous zoning. Instead, he's having to constantly play the mid game. He's just not as easy as everyone else in front of him. And then finally, we have Scorpion. What a weird character in this game. He has virtually no mix-ups whatsoever and relies entirely on chip or whiff punishes. And as a result, Cyrax was his main partner, but guess who got nerfed? Cyrax. And as a result, the Scorpion players have to play even safer or go for a risky instant air teleport into an empty jump throw or maybe an overhead punch on the way down, right? In other words, Scorpion has become a low risk, low reward kind of character unless you land the whiff punish, at which point his damage is actually fairly decent, he's got good corner carry, and he also can dominate the airspace a little bit. But overall, I think most would agree the only people playing Scorpion are those who enjoy Scorpion as a character, because his gameplay does not give you any favors whatsoever. He's one of the most lacking characters in the game. Alright everyone, and there you have it, my tier list of every character from hardest to easiest. If you skip to the end of the video and have beef with me, that's your own fault because you didn't listen to my reasoning, so you're just dumb. But to everybody else, the vast majority of viewers who did watch the entire thing and got to this point, thank you so much, and I love you for it. If you haven't already, I recommend subscribing so you don't miss any future videos, and also leave a like if you enjoyed this video. And now it's time to reveal more about my upcoming comic, Top Tier. The Indiegogo launches in 4 days, and I'm so excited. Every character in the comic is unique and inspired by the fighting games I love so much. If you support the Indiegogo, then you'll even get trading cards that detail their personality, history, and fighting style. Like Jubei, for example. She's the ninja girl, because every great fighting game roster needs a ninja girl. Jubei's father wanted a boy, hence her masculine name, but she competes in the arena every day to prove her worth, and she hopes to one day lead the ninja clan. However, in her free time, she enjoys writing poetry and even pranking her friend David. The first issue of Top Tier is filled with awesome characters like this, each of them with their own goals and reasons to keep fighting. So get ready, because the Indiegogo launches in 4 days. There's gonna be t-shirts, collectibles, and so much more, so stay tuned.